That's great.
Okay, Brendan.
Right. We're live. How's everybody
Trotting after
going?
you, Sal.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
hot down here in Melbourne. What is it like over there, guys? Are you still in Sydney, Brendan, or are you in Perth?
No, I'm in Perth. It's actually very reasonable at the moment. It's about, I think, 28, 29 today. But last week it was up in the mid to high 30s for a few days, and it was pretty tough.
Yeah. It's humid
Well,
down
what I'll
here.
say is Sydney has a beautiful day today, I think. I'm indoors, but we've had this problem with the Optus outage. And it looks like everybody's frozen up. So anyhow, I keep talking and hopefully people will come back. But we've had a problem with Optus outage, so we'll see how we go today with regards to this. Yeah, I don't know how it's going to work. But what I thought we'd talk about is I've been listening to this fascinating book about Elon Musk, who's the world's richest man. And I know that Sally and I, early on this year, we did Think and Grow Rich, which, became a mentor for both Sally and I, was the author of Think and Grow Rich and what he had to do. And I don't even think we're live anymore. But anyhow, so I thought we'd talk about mentors, financial mentors, how important it is to have them, if anybody's got any financial mentors, and those kind of things. So both people look like they're frozen up, but is anybody with me still?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh, Brendan,
Can you hear
okay.
us?
All right,
I
okay.
can see Sally moving perfectly. Yep. Way to go, Sal.
All right, so Brendan, do you have any mentors, financial mentors?
Not in that sense. Probably the person that in recent times I've paid a bit more attention to is Ray Dalio. The retired chief executive of BlackRock. I'm always careful to say BlackRock, the hedge fund, as opposed to Blackwater, which is the mercenary crowd. So he has written a book called Principles, and it's very much, it's macro rather than micro. It's not mentorship, but he talks about the change in how the world goes through cycles and the transitions we're going through at the moment. And I just find him very insightful and considered, not someone who's taking a political angle or an ideological angle, but someone who actually sits back and say, this is what human beings do, these are the circumstances, and this is how the world is changing. And you have two choices. You can either participate, or like King Canute, you can try and hold the waves back, and we all know how that one worked out.
Yep, okay. Sorry, I'm just wondering if Sally's still with us. Are you still with us, Sally?
Yeah, I'm totally here. I'm never sold.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think the issues are probably on your side, because we've had no issues so far. Sally is, her picture has been absolutely fine, and I'm pretty sure mine is okay.
Yeah.
So just pretend we're here. Just pretend you're talking to Elon.
Well, the book that I'm listening to is Elon Musk, and we do have a few things in common. The first thing is that we're both born in South Africa. So there was a time, he's a little bit younger than me, but there was a time where we both lived in South Africa at the same time. Now, he might have been 2 years old and I might have been 8, but we delivered, and we both did judo. But other than that, I think that's about as far as our similarities go. Maybe we both men. But let me ask Sally the same question. Sally, do you have any financial mentors? I know you and I had, I think she's dropped out.
No, she's there.
We've had a few together, haven't we?
Yeah, so, because we started this group talking about money and the energy around money. And so we started reading books, and that's where this group evolved from. And the book that really kickstarted for me was Dr. Joe Vitale's book, The Secret to Manifesting Money, and changing the relationship to money. And hence the Empowered Clothing came after we both read that book. And the next day it downloaded with the idea with the empowered clothing, how to monetize something that you're passionate about. Now, this is a massive work in progress, and it's a case study to see how it actually works. But that all came out of the book. So I've since done a couple of Dr. Joe's courses, and I'm in the middle of doing one of his online courses about bringing in the cash. So we'll see what happens there. Another person who I thought was a good relatable was Scott Pope, the barefoot investor. There was a lot of people who are a bit naive about how to just manage your own money and set up accounts. I thought that was a very sort of 101 in managing money, and I thought that was, for the everyday person, I thought that was a really good starting block. Another one who I've found really influential has been Denise Duffield Thomas, who has Get Rich Lucky Bitch. She has the money tracker, and she's really she's a powerful manifester, but she does a lot with helping people with money boot camps and that sort of thing. Like Heather Mitchell. Have you guys met Heather Mitchell through networking? And she helps you overcome your limiting beliefs and things around money and money blocks. So my mentors are people that work with energy and help you or give you tools and techniques to overcome some, blocks that you may have, what energetically you're putting out there, linking into limiting beliefs and all those old attachments. And so I think that's how we got on to Think and Grow Rich, because it was about how do we work with money in a more empowered, energetic way. So a little bit different to just having a mentor. And also, growing up, I think, it's very different to the way that we were brought up. My dad was in finance, and he was a financial planner. And I remember my godfather, he had like a big spreadsheets for his kids, and interest was paid and all this sort of stuff with pocket money. So they got to understand how money works, or how you can work the system to make it work for you. As little kids, I think that's a good way. Bobber job and things like that. We used to actually work for money and have money. So I think childhood influenced us a bit as well with the way that we've developed our relationship with money. And I think that's very different now, particularly with the electronic money. With kids, they just here's a story. When my kids got out of COVID and they went out partying, and they just left school, and they hadn't been able to work, so they don't have much pocket money or cash that they've got, but they were going out to bars and having cocktails, and they were just tapping their card, and then the next morning realized, oh my God, I've spent way more than I thought, because you're just tapping a card, and it's not. So relationship with money is very different for our kids today than it was. Back in the day, you went out with $100, and if you finished your $100, that was it. You went home. So it's very hard to talk about the substance, piggyback and saving your 5 cents and your 10 cents and your $1 and your $2 in your side drawer, and then finding $50 there, 6 months later, whatever. So the relationship with money, I think, has changed for kids growing up. I don't know if, Paul, what do you do with your kids? Do they feel money? Do they touch it? Remember that story when your son found $20?
Money. So my kids, I just read Think and Grow Rich to them every night. They're still too young to appreciate money. My younger kid is a bit of a spendthrift, but for some reason, he tends to attract more money. We were walking one day just somewhere in La Perouse, and he just found $42. And for a 9-year-old, that was a lot of money. And then when he had his birthday, he got like $600-700. And so he's just gone out and bought himself video games and things like that. And then the other thing he does do is he gets his brother, he does chores for his brother and he gets him to pay. So he makes a bit of money that way. But yeah, it's quite interesting. I suppose let's get back onto the mentor roles. Brendan, how important is it for somebody who wants to become wealthy? How important is it to have somebody that's is a mentor to them, whether it be through a book like Think and Grow Rich or an autobiography?
To be honest, Paul, and this is going to sound like a kind of an unsupported statement, I think it might be the single most important thing unless you grow up inheriting money, which is pretty damn rare. We all go through the education system to some extent or another. It's pretty crap. I say that as someone who was reasonably academic and could absorb and regurgitate information very well, and didn't learn anything about the world until I actually got dropped into the world. And as I look back over the years and the decades, some people come to my head, and I've kind of come to the unscientific conclusion that the biggest difference for them versus most of the other guys that I've worked with or knew over the years is that the ones who had mentors, quite often it's a family member, if there's a family business, whether it's small, medium, or large, or those who actually go into a business and form a relationship with someone senior and kind of really get mentored that way, or people who perhaps just decide for themselves they'll follow a book, a person, Robert Kiyosaki being one of the world names in the whole thing. To me, I think what it does is it gets over that issue of inexperience. So you can be the greatest academic and you can be the technical bloody genius at some stupid little niche, but you're still inexperienced until you learn in the real world. And mentorship points you in the right direction. And sport is a really great analogy for this, because when you look at any discipline, from tennis through soccer through, judo, it doesn't really matter. Everyone can relate to the master, the Muhammad Alis, copy them, learn from them, piggyback on them, and improve that way. So it is very unscientific, but if I had a magic wand to change the education system, I'd actually give a mentor to each individual child, probably around the year 7, year 8 time. And it wouldn't always be financial, but it would be to find out what they're really good at and to leverage that and to kind of try and work on the weaknesses, much more importantly, develop the strengths that every kid, every human being has.
So there's so many times I wanted to interrupt you, but if you actually have a look at a child, when a child plays, if they want to be Superman, they will imitate Superman. And so children are very good at stepping into the character that they're trying to be. And if you want to be wealthy, it does help to be able to step into that character and pretend you're Rupert Murdoch, or I don't know if you want to pretend to be Rupert, maybe Richard Branson. He's everybody's favorite billionaire is Richard Branson. But it is also important. Also, I know when I started in financial planning, I was around a successful practice, and just seeing what was actually capable of being doing, it really helped you to expand your thoughts and all of that. Sally, what's your view on that? How important is it to have a mentor?
Yeah, well, I mean, did you say it was year 7, year 8, Brendan, that you think is a sort of
yeah. And it's not, again, I stress that's not scientific, but I just said that because kids are aware without being too far down the track.
Yeah, I mean, like Paul was saying before, for birthdays, it's very common for family to give money or to give gift cards. And so the kids understand the transaction dollar for dollar type of thing. But in my experience with my kids, it wasn't until they started working and could see the true value of what you could buy. They had their set up bank accounts as little kids, and they would get their birthday money and give it to me, and then I'd show them each time how their bank account was rising. But they couldn't apply it because they weren't applying it in real life, having to work and pay for petrol in your car. So from my experience, you need to be exposed as early as possible, but it's the applying it. So, saving up your pocket money and going, my earliest memory was, I don't know if you remember those dolls, Chrissy dolls in velvet, and you could press your belly button and pull their hair out, and they would grow their hair, and then you could wind it back in at the back. So they were really expensive, and they were really sort of just, back in the day, we didn't have a huge amount of toys that came out that were really, popular. So I saved and saved and saved. And that's what my first memory of really understanding, applying the value, was saving up my pocket money to buy this Chrissy doll. And, you know, it might have been back in the day $30 or something, but that took me like 6 months to save. So I think once you're applying it, then it really starts to sink in. So having any experience with that, like if you get the pocket money and say, okay, let's go. And I did it with my son, actually. He wanted a PlayStation. So we set that as a goal, and he had to do all these things. So we just kept checking the totals and checking the totals till we had enough to get it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's bringing in, I think parents, family are going to be your biggest influences as you're growing up. So
Agreed.
That's set up. So it's bringing in whatever experiences you can at primary level, I'd say, but it's not until in my experience, my kids turned teenagers and were paying for things themselves, real life things like petrol and insurance and car service and whatever else. So that's my thought on it.
Can I just go back to something you said a little while ago, Sally, about, you know, the kids going out and waking up the following morning and find out they had tapped too much? Again, This is one of my absolute personal greatest criticisms of our financial system, of capitalism, of our society as it's structured. The promotion of microcredit, so that it's, you know, it's crack for teenagers. If you actually, what you did, and you know, because of my vintage and yours to some extent as well, Paul, there was no such things as credit cards. You had to save if you wanted to. And I remember as a small kid doing the exact same as you. If you wanted something, there was two places to get it. One was to beg, cry, and badger your parents. And when they said no, which is most of the time, you had to save up yourself or get a job and put the money in. I remember my first fishing rod that I got when I was whatever. But I had worked in the local shop for 2 hours on a Saturday morning at the age of 11. Now that's banned by law now, which I think is ridiculous. So we did learn because we had no choice. It was normal.
What about you, Paul? What's your first memory of saving and buying something?
Well, I'll tell you what, right? When it was probably the first year I was in Australia, and I wanted to have a television because in South Africa, TV was relatively new, and we had 2 hours of English and 2 hours of Afrikaans, and that's all we had a day.
Can I ask you, Paul? Sorry, Paul. Can I ask you? Was it only black and white? Joke.
In South Africa, no, it was colour in South Africa.
Joke.
Oh, okay, sorry. I don't know. We might be taken off the air now. That's a bit controversial. No, but I wanted a television because I love television as a 12-year-old. And it cost, I don't know, probably $120 back then when $120 meant something. And the way I actually came about the money was I saved as much as I could, but also I'm very good at solving puzzles. And one evening my father came home with this puzzle and he threw it. I've got 3 brothers, so there's 4 boys. He threw the puzzle to us and said, if you can solve this puzzle, by the time we get back, I'll give you $10. And I can't work with anybody. So I was working. So I just let my brothers all go. They couldn't figure it out. Eventually, once they gave up, I just went and got the puzzle and solved it quite quickly. And by the time my father got back, the puzzle was solved. So he said, well, you solved it by yourself. So I got $40 for that, right? Whoa. And the other thing I did was my father, to encourage us to study, was to, if we had a increase in our results at school, the greater the increase, the more money we earned. And so I was very smart. I just went really bad the first quarter or first half. And then the second half, I actually applied myself. And so I made myself another $40. So within the first year, I managed to save enough money, and I got myself what was called a 3-in-1 at that time. So it was a smaller black and white television, a radio, and a cassette. You know, when you put the cassettes in, that's how long ago it was. So that was my first memory of that. How about yours, Brendan? Do you have any great memories like that as well?
Not exactly the same, but I guess multiple memories about. Let me give you the opposite almost. Until probably the best part of the year 2000, I used to put every single bit of coin change that I ever got in a bottle whenever I came home. It was a 4 liter bottle or something like that. And when it was full, I'd get about €300 or something out of it. And it was just complete and utter. It was one of those childhood habits that when you got your pocket money, I used to put it in a jam jar, and not spend it very quickly. And it was wonderful. So it is one of the things that we have lost. Now, when I say we lost, I always kind of, as you know, I'm looking at balance. We've progressed more than we've lost in every sense, but you do lose things that are personal to you. So that savings habit, which lots of people have, of our broad generation, came from the fact that, you know, you got coins and you put them away, and then you looked at it when it turned into $1 a pound or whatever it happened to be. You can't do that now, but I fondly remember turning up that bottle it's probably once every quarter, I suspect, to see could I beat the previous quarter's record. And it was actually before the euro, so it was about £300 worth, which in dollar terms, call it $500, which back in the 90s was still significant. And I was earning good money at the time, but it was always just one of those little things that was a bluebird. And what's Scott Pape's thing, the Barefoot Investor, he has his little splurge ones. That was mine at the time.
Yeah. So just on that point, so amongst the chicks, I always say to all my clients, I say every chick needs to have a stash, particularly like in traditional marriages where you're staying at home with the kids and you don't have the income and you don't have any independence, right? So I've always had this thing about keeping a stash. So here's one of my little stashes that happens to be next to me because I have some clients that pay cash, and so I like to put that aside. And it just happened that I was just pulling it all together. I've stuck it in all places and I pulled it together to keep it, do it there. So it's my little stash. Now, when I was moving, it's a couple of years ago now, I had girlfriends over trying to undo the cupboards. We've been there like forever. And anyway, we were throwing out a lot of stuff, and I had a box of shoes. And she went to throw out the shoes and she said, I'll just open it up. And inside was $7,000 that I had saved up over a year from one client one year. And so, it was like a beautiful gift from God, Brendan, opening it up. It's better than Christmas. Yeah. And then when I found all of the bits and put it together, I've got quite a bit of cash in here. And I'm going, well, that's my holiday fund. So it's still hanging on to what the memories of what I used to do as a kid. And so when you brought that up, I thought it's still stayed with me. I still have my little stashes. Every chick needs a stash of cash. Everyone. Well, every bloke.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you have to be a chick to want to have a stash. I think we all like to have a little bit of spare money to go out and
spend. When you're married and you don't have an income coming in and you're looking after the kids in those years, when you take time off. Yeah, and you want to do.
No, I think you're dead right there, because no matter what way you look at it, the world is still skewed male. And I just caught a headline earlier today that women do 4 times as much unpaid work as men. And I'm going to put up my hand and say, there's no question that's true. So, it's a good idea.
Yeah, but I mean, women just have to have the house perfect. I'm happy with a bit of mess.
Yeah. Oh, look, I got over that one very quickly. 4 kids in 4 years. I just couldn't do it. And superwoman, we all might be, but sometimes we just have to put our armor down and go, it's killing me.
Well, look, if men were the ones who were to bear children, the population of the world would be precisely 0 at this stage.
Add in periods. Oh my God. On that note, back to you, Paul.
Okay. Well, look, it's to the half now. I'm actually I don't know about you, but I'm finding that this connection's not very good. I think we can blame a hacker or Optus or somebody. So what we'll do is we'll call it a break for today, but thank you. I found it fascinating. Again, lots of great insights. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Brendan, and thank you,
Good
Paul.
to be here. Yeah,
Awesome
thanks.
week.
Yeah, you too. See you, Sam. See you, Paul. Cheers.